That's amazing. Speaking of technology, because of course you're wearing this beautiful T-shirt, do you want to talk a little bit about DAWs in general? I mean, I'm sure that there's multiple uses for them, but I mean, your experience and why you picked Sequoia as something you record in. It would be great to hear it from you.
Well, sure. When I retired from Sony, and I still work with them as a consultant, such as the Joshua Bell album, which is on Sony Classical. I was, for the first time, able to do freelance recording as an independent producer, and I wanted to have my own system to record with, and basically an all-in-one facility, recording gear, hardware, and software, and a digital audio workstation to do my editing and my mixing. And there are several, obviously, different companies that make equipment to do post-production and software. And I heard such wonderful things about Sequoia that I checked it out, basically, and found that it was as good, if not better, than the best digital audio workstations that we had been working with on a commercial level. I mean, I know Sequoia is used in mastering facilities at commercial labels, certainly, and so I ended up using that as my de facto for my own recordings as my de facto workstation.
Yeah. Just because we were talking to David Collin the other day, and he was talking about pretty much doing the comparison between the sound, just that Sequoia blew him away for the sound that it produces. Is that how you came to it too? Is that you just you can hear it, the difference?
The sound has to be state of the art, and as far as I'm concerned, it is. And recordings that I have made using the Sequoia software have gotten very high acclaim with regard to the sound and artistry, the artists that I've been recording with the system. Another wonderful thing about Sequoia, for me, the centerpiece in many ways is the editing system. It is an incredibly intuitive system as well as an incredibly refined editing system. The crossfade editor, for me, is second to none because I find that I'm making edits that I would not even consider making with other systems. And also it saves me a great deal of time. After there's very little learning curve involved. I mean, if you have a basic sense of editing and how the system works, you can become a really good editor, of course, depending on your ears, in a very short amount of time.
So the music industry is always changing, and I think that classical music is having not a tough time, but it's more difficult. It's more of a threshold. But at the same time, less people are stealing it off the internet. The more people are looking for the quality sounds, and when you get an MP3, you're losing a lot of the mid-range sounds.
Definitely.
And classical music, that's where it lives, is in this huge range. It's not something you can work out to because of the range of it, but it is something that you want a quality product for. So, but how has technology, you think, changed the recording industry that you're working in the last 10 years or even up to now?
Well, the quality of the recordings, the equipment that's used to make these recordings has vastly increased over the years. With regard to the sensitivity of the state-of-the-art microphones that we use now, and which allows us to, when we're doing a recording, particularly of classical music, where you want the recording venue, if it's a good hall or a good studio, you want that to be part of the sound, obviously. So the trick is always the ratio between the presence of the ensemble and the, let's say, the reverberation or the ambience of that ensemble. And the mixture of both is where you sort of get that magic sweet spot. And with the refinement of digital and higher resolution recording sampling rates, you can allow the recording venue to have more of an influence, and therefore you get more of what I like to say a concert hall sound. And this is what I go after. When I make my recordings, I would say that I I opt for as few microphones as possible. If I'm doing an orchestral recording, I've made many orchestral recordings with only 2 microphones.
Really?
Absolutely. We'll set out many other microphones because there's a lot of money involved when you're recording a symphony orchestra. But we spend our time, the engineer and I spend our time refining and honing the two main microphones to get the most optimum sound possible. And therefore, by doing that, the final product, you're getting a greater depth of soundstage, better imaging, better signal-to-noise ratio because you have less equipment in the chain, less microphones in the chain. And so that's really what I'm after. And fortunately, I feel very comfortable when I use Sequoia because I know that's not going to add any, any artifacts or other things that we would want to get into this kind of a very refined sound.
That's great. What's the best